Hey, what's up? Welcome to day 4. Actually, sorry, day 24, I think. Right? Day 27, never mind. It has almost been a month of doing this, so pretty excited. I think today I'm gonna go over so it's week 3, no longer week 3. It is now week 4. And I want to just try to write a little bit about the monthly report and also hopefully finish the VF Corp DCF. Kind of falling behind on this one. So let's pull this open. I'm also gonna follow up on my book. Okay, so let's kind of recap here. We've pretty much tried to calculate the current free cash flow to equity. As an equity holder myself, I'm trying to value the equity portion of the business, but maybe it'll be interesting to also look at the entire value of the business itself. So maybe just looking at free cash flow. But how we got to free cash flow to equity is we started with the net income. And so from net income, we subtracted net capital expenditures. So that's going to be your capital expenditures minus depreciation. But then there's a difficult assumption we need to make with acquisitions. So with VF Corp, they're a holding company. They have different portfolio of brands that they've acquired and divested over the course of the 30-40 years of going public. And I think the company has been probably around for 100 plus years now. And so that's a big thing that we have to account for, the cash flows and reinvestment into the business. So I think what I'm going to do for that is maybe average out the acquisitions over the past 5 years, past 10 years, and apply that annually. I'm not too sure. So that's an ambiguous assumption that we need to make as we build this model. And then the other thing we need to subtract from net income is changes in non-cash working capital. So working capital is just measured as current assets minus current liabilities. I think an intuitive way to think about working capital is just how much money, resources does the company have on a day-to-day basis, nets of all of the obligations that it has on a day-to-day basis. And so when we're looking at non-cash working capital, we're looking at the non-cash related current assets. So that's going to be things like inventory and accounts receivable. Those are our two biggest ones. And then for our liabilities, we're looking at any current liabilities that isn't related to debts. And so this is usually going to be any type of accounts payable. So those are our two main those are our two main assets, one main current liability, and we've subtract the two. Let's see, did I subtract them? Total current assets, yeah, okay. So we subtract the two, and then we also subtract the difference from the net income. And then once we have that, then down majority claims, we need to add back any net changes in cash from raising debt. And so that's going to look like new debt issued minus debt repayments. Now, I can kind of understand the theory behind it because this debt that's being raised, the leftover cash is available for whatever the equity holders want. Whatever the equity holder ends up. Sorry, let me start over. The debt is available for any type of purpose for the equity holders. You can buy back stock, pay out dividends, or reinvest it into the business. But I feel like for me, it's not really that intuitive because when we're looking at money that's raised through debt, it's eventually going to have to be paid back to the debt holders themselves. And so I don't see how if we add cash flows, from new debts, then that might overstate the free cash flow to the equity holders in the long term. Unless the company is able to efficiently reinvest the money that is generated. But I have a feeling that VFC right now is not doing that. Its earnings have been trending down and revenue has kind of been plateauing. So the company has divested a lot of its assets, divested some of its holdings, and also has completed a spinoff, I think, in 2019 for its jeanswear business. Okay, so that's how we got from a manual standpoint to our free cash flow to equity. Now, when we look at a different way to get to free cash flow to equity, Damodaran suggests that we could start by using the statement of cash flows. And so, statement of cash flows, there's 3 different sections. There's cash flows from operating activities, cash flows from investing activities, and cash flow from financing activities. And what we start with can be the cash flow from operating activities. And so usually how this works is it's broken down into first the net income at the end of the period, and then we add any non-cash adjustments or make any non-cash adjustments. So that means that any non-cash related expense, whether it could be, let's say, impairment of assets, depreciation or amortization of assets, maybe a loss or gain on extinguishment of debt. So these are going to be 3 different non-cash expenses or revenues that we could adjust in order to reflect the cash flows not actually flowing in or out of the business due to these expenses. Another thing we want to do is look at the changes in operating capital, working capital. I think specifically non-cash working capital. And I think the reason why we want to do this is because when we're looking at our balance sheet, and especially working capital itself, these accounts are affected by the movement of cash flows across the company. And so we won't be able to see that on the income statement, whether or not a company is making reinvestments back into its business, increasing the amount of inventory, or maybe becoming more efficient with its inventory and decreasing that amount. And so that is something we can look at on the balance sheet. So any changes in inventory, changes in accounts receivable, changes in accounts payable, these are all going to be reflected. And so all of these different things are calculated together to arrive at the net cash flows from operating activity. So how much cash the company has generated or lost over the period in which the report is made in. And so this will tell you how much cash has flowed in or out of the business. Now from here, I think there's a few things that we can do in order to arrive at free cash flow to equity. So similar to the first manual approach, it's to look at the capital expenditures and the cash flows for acquisitions. And so this is going to be found in the investments section. So the cash flows for investing. And usually you'll see that these are cash outflows. So whenever you're making investments into the business, you're usually spending money on different types of equipment, maybe some capital assets. And so these are usually going to be cash outflows because you're spending money. And then once we have capital expenditures, there's also acquisitions. So acquisitions are one company buying another. In this case, whatever the company it's reporting is buying another company that it believes is going to possibly increase revenues, increase profits, maybe add some competitive advantage. Okay. So those are two things we can find in the statement of cash flows. We'll subtract that from the cash flows from operating activities. And then we also want to possibly add back any net changes in cash from debt. So any changes in cash from financing activities. But the problem here is that we have two different measures of cash flows and two different values that are not really close to each other. So this is the more, I would say, book or accounting correct way to look at things when we're looking at the cash flow statement. And then this could be maybe improved a little bit. So yeah, that's a good recap of what's going on here. Time to look at our valuation. Maybe let's look at the numbers here. So we can see that over the course of the past 5 years, 4 years, 4 years, the company has had a decline in revenues. So I wonder what, maybe a timeline of historical events is helpful. Timeline of historical events. Hello. So VF Corporation, Contour, Reds.
sorry，
No, 没事没事。
这个入，这是个这都不用那个，这不需要那个它啥lemon什么问啊，这都不需要哈，lemon有什么还是那个酱，这有吗？
这没有酱，
没有酱哈，不需要。
这可能有点 spicy
哈，哦，那行，算了，我就不买了。
Okay, so it's maybe year, month. So year and month we have 2019, month May, Contour Brands. That's spent. VF. So I think when we look at the income statement, then we might see discontinued. Let's see. Discontinued operations 2019, 78,000. It's not a lot, to be honest. I'll take a look. Yeah. Yeah, I'll take a look later. Interest, irregular income expense. So gain or extinguishment, loss of debts. You know, the discontinued operations. Isn't that much, to be honest. This is just 788,000. Okay. So maybe they just really did just fall. Take a look at VF Corporation annual reports 20. Oh, is that due to COVID too? Maybe actually. No, I wouldn't think so, because 2020, the fiscal year 2020 would have ended in March 2020, so I don't think that would have happened. Maybe 50. Net of tax line item. Income from discontinued operations, net of tax line items. The related cash flows report as discontinued operations. It's the export of investitures. Okay. So I'm curious as to why in 2020 and their income statement, so they have 2488.56. Okay, so that's reasonable. But why are they claiming that revenues was at 10 million, or I guess 10 billion, when in reality it was 13? So I'm curious. Does it have to do with the fact that discontinued operations, but discontinued operations wasn't even that much? VFC fiscal year 2019 annual report. That's sick, by the way. Steve Randall. Say page 40. I see. So we're in March. Year ended March 2019, revenues were up 12% to 13.8 billion compared to the 12 months ended March 2018. So does that mean we should subtract whatever this is? So let's take a look to get minus $10,830.02. So is that what is being reported here? No, it's not. They have recorded non-operating losses on sale related to the divestiture of the Reef brand business and Van Moore business, totaling $36.8 million in the year into 2019. Come from continuing operations. Okay, so there's this. So the jeans business was added into the figure for revenue. Let's see, 4,000. It's 11,000. There's also something else here missing. Okay, so maybe some revenues from Reef was also taken out. So Reef, Eagle Creek, Dickies. So that's 11 billion. Was Reef really responsible for 1 billion in sales? I don't think so. What else is there here? Reef. I see. So they don't include all revenues from their continued operations. Oh, okay. The occupational workwear business was also divested. Okay, so they are kind of cheating a bit. feel like. So let's also take a look here. Okay, so these are all actually part of fiscal year 2019. Wait, so when was the workwear stuff spin off on? Or when was the workwear stuff sold? This is what fiscal year 2020. Okay. Oh, right there. Okay, business. We have work. Maybe here. Is bulwark on here? Bulwark. I see. Okay. So this is, yeah, now that we're digging into the numbers, it's starting to make a little bit more sense. So let's write some stuff down. Let's get the timeline in check. Timeline of historical. So fiscal year, month, maybe a fiscal year. We'll do FY 2020. May. Alright, so VFC creates spinoff of Contour Brands. This is the jeanswear business. I think there was let's add a fiscal year 2021. Actually 2020. VFC initiates divestiture of brands of a collection of brands in the work segment. So this is going to be Bulwark, Horace Small, Red Cap, Walls, I think, Terra as well. What else is there? Work, Right, Walls, Terra, Kodiak. Bulwark, Horace Small, Red Cap, Kodiak, Work, Authority, VF Solutions. Work, Rights. B2B business. B2B Dickies business. Discontinue operations. Okay, so let's say Bulwark. Brand. Terra. Buyer of VFC work segment. Oh, Redwood Capital Investments. All right. These assets. Liabilities are documented as held for sale, and revenues are in discontinued operations. Okay, so I think this is maybe where the income statement, this is maybe what is, so what is this? 150 million. So maybe this is what's what is it's the operating income for the discontinued operations. I don't know what their revenues are. Okay. van mower business. Represented approximately 165 million. Okay, this is interesting. So this also should be timeline of historical events. Fiscal year. Let's do fiscal year 2017. So this would be October of 2017, month October. VFC purchases William Dickey. $800 million cash. Okay. And I think after this is where VFC annual report. Do they have an annual report for 2018? Alright, so this is the adjustment right here. After fiscal year 2023, so maybe we can add a little blue line. It's kind of too. So, adjustment. Adjustments made to reporting. Fiscal year reporting after FY 2017 instead of ending in December. The I'm not too sure if it's ending in December or early. Fiscal year end of December. It now ends end of March / early April. Oops. Maybe if, yeah, doesn't look that great. Oops. Maybe just make this a little bit bigger. Or maybe I can make this a little bit bigger. So 18, 16. Okay. 14. Okay. So this is the adjustment period. Now we have fiscal year 2019. So now it's FY 2019 is going to be 2019, 2018. June, so I think this would be April, and we have June. Maybe let's create some space here. So April, June, VFC purchases Ultra, Icebreaker. So around 200 million cash, $200 million cash, and then VFC purchases Ultra. So this is around 130 million cash. All right. And then I think maybe fiscal. Oops. FY 2021, right? Or FY 2022. I think that's what it would be. 2022. So I think the year's 2021. April, we have April, VFC enters agreement to segment to Redwood Capital. Okay. So this drop here actually is a result from the divestiture of the different assets. So the spin-off of the genes, and then also the divestiture of work segments, it's caused this. That's just why net income fell a lot. But this is even greater, so. Okay. Liabilities, non-cash working capital, changes in non-cash working capital. Alright, so that decreased. So it increased a lot this year. Net debt issuance payments. Alright, so when did VFC acquire Supreme? VFC Supreme. Let's see. Huh. Who's Sam Poser? Interesting. Follow. Equity research analyst. Susquehanna. Williams Trading. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, what's Pitzer College? Private liberal arts college in Fremont, California. Oh, that's cool. So the sale positions VFC for a large acquisition in the near future, which was right because they ended up. And it continues to be the company's appetite from a capital allocation standpoint, and the sale of 9 brand sets to $1 billion to VFC's war chest. So even as here, but the price would be significantly higher than recent deals. Wind up costing 4 times EV to sales on 2020. Compares to 2 times EV sales. VF paid for Ultra 1.1 EV to sales for Icebreaker. What is SGB Media? This is a cool article though. Jim Duffy. I'm gonna follow these guys on LinkedIn. I don't think Master Finance Manager. Jim Duffy, Stiefel, right? It's cool. A legend. Oh, that's cool. Aaron Murphy. That's sick. Yeah. These guys are definitely very smart. Okay. Let's not get down the LinkedIn rabbit hole. SGB Media. So I guess this is something similar to the... It seems like this is pretty similar to what is kind of like the Business of Fashion newsletter. Okay, that's cool. It's not paid or anything, so might take a look at it later. So let's see, VFC Supreme acquisition. Okay, so December timeline of events. So this will be fiscal year 2021. Right? So 2021. So it'll be 2020 December. VFC acquires Supreme at a base price of 2.1 billion. Supreme, a streetwear brand with 12 stores and a cult-ish following, is being sold. The business will be delivered to VF without any debt. Interesting. Oh, okay. So I guess VFC bought out all of the debts. So it did have 500 million in revenues. I wonder how much in profit though, so like EV to EBITDA. Supreme multiples. That's a fire jacket, though, I have to say. A little under 15 times the brand's EBITDA. Okay. It's 15 times. So sources. Supreme. Supreme acquisition. Okay. All right, so I think we have a pretty good idea of what's going on here. So this is in fiscal 2021. That is when the firm issued a bit more debts. Okay, so net debt issuance payments. Let's add debts here. So I think from a cash flow annuals, you have a cash flow from investing activity, purchase of sales, cash flow from financing. So 1 billion. Issue 1 billion in debts, 1 billion in debts. Okay. Oops, shit. Oh, wait. Can I paste special formulas? Oh, shit. Oops. This is what we want. There we go. Okay. Which is equals to operating cash flows minus capital expenditures plus net debt issuance. Oh, we didn't talk about acquisitions yet. Alright, I guess we can include acquisitions after. I kind of want to get started on forecasting these cash flows. Gonna come back real quick. Use the bathroom. Alright. I'll be back. Close. I'm gonna change real quick. So put on some sweatpants. Cool. Should I wear sweatshirts? This Carhartt sweatshirt. I'll wear it at the places hoodie instead. That's what I want to wear. Maybe turkey. It's pretty cool. So let's take a look. How the hell do we forecast these cash flows? The length of the extraordinary growth period confirms. question of how long a firm will be able to sustain high growth is perhaps one of the more difficult questions to answer in this value in evaluation. High growth and valuation, or at least high growth that creates value, comes from firms earning excess returns on their marginal investments. In other words, increased value comes from firms having a return on capital that is in excess of the cost of capital. Okay, let's see. So these are all going to be our estimated. So let's say revenues decreased. Three, Q1, Q2, Q1, Q2, Q1, Q2. So let's say that we increase by another, let's say a 5% decrease. Minus 10. So even if it's, alright, let's say minus 10. Minus 5. Let's say we have these really obscene growth rates, and then operating income. Let's use this as a percent of revenue. So percent of revenue is equal to so margins, let's say margins are pretty bad, so they drop down to 5%. So 5%, stay at 5%. Times 5%. Oops. Nice. All right, and then net income. So this is all in millions. Net income, let's say as a percentage of revenue. Oops. So 5%. Okay, so let's just say that 2%. We're gonna go conservative here. So these are going to be our estimates. Percent. Oops. We have times. Oh, this, right. Capital expenditures. Percent change, so let's say, let's take a look at this as a percent of revenue. So this is equal to divided by revenues. Okay, so about 1% of, we could be a bit more, let's say, okay, let's say 1% of revenues. Then we have is equal to revenues times oops. Non-cash working capital. Alright, let's not even try to forecast the changes in non-cash working capital. And let's just assume that free cash flow to equity excluding debt. $104. Okay, right. Operating cash flows. So these should be the same. Yeah. If I add this. Okay. We also have our weighted average cost of cap. So weighted average cost of equity is going to be whack. So this is going to be cost of equity using a default spread. All right, let's just do that. So cost of equity. See, we can maybe create a PV. So PV free cash flow equity extents. Times 1. Plus. One plus our discount rate. So in this case, the cost of equity. And let's say we raise it by maybe say want to subtract minus, so this should be okay, so this is the present value of all the cash flows. Oh, that doesn't look good though. Cost of equity should also be fixed. Okay, so I think these are in millions, so it'd be 92 million. Whatnot. Okay, so we also have a terminal value. How do we... Wait a minute. Okay. DCF. Semi-present value. Okay, so we have, let's move this down here. Actually, just insert maybe. Oh. Inserts. Okay, so now we have some present value cash flows. Sum and just 76 million. It's 10%. Oh yeah, revenues increase by margins. See. What's that happening? 20? Ah, that's not. So let's say 2, -5. Yeah, -5 makes more sense. So what if we increase this to 3%? Oh, yeah. Percent of revenue. Some present values, cash flows. Right. And then we have, what else do we have? Terminal value. And shares outstanding. Maybe we just add terminal value, cash flows, and then divide by shares outstanding, so it gets applied share price maybe. So terminal value, let's see how these guys, since we cannot estimate cash flows forever, we generally impose closure and discount capital by stopping our estimation of cash flows sometimes in the future. Computing terminal value. Come on. One applies a multiple to earnings, revenues, or book value to estimate the value in the terminal year. The other assumes that the cash flows of the firm will grow at a constant rate for other stable growth. Perpetual growth model. Perpetuity. Okay. Terminal value reflects the value firm at that point. So terminal value is the value of the firm after the growth period, the DCF period. We can find the terminal value in one of three ways. One is to assume a liquidation of the firm's assets. Terminal year and estimate what others would pay for the assets that was accumulated at that point. And the other two approaches value the firm as a going concern at the time of the terminal value estimation. Applies a multiple to earnings revenue book to estimate the value in the terminal year. The other assumes that the cash flows of the firm will still growth rate. Perpetuity, and you also have multiples. Liquidation value. In some valuations, we can assume that the firm will cease operations at a point in the time in the future and sell the assets as liquidated to the highest bidders. The estimates the estimate that emerges is called liquidation value. There are two ways in which the liquidation value can be estimated. One is to base it on the book value of the assets, adjusted for any inflation during the period. Thus, if the book value of assets 10 years from now is expected to be $2 billion, the average age of the assets at that point is 5 years, and the expected inflation rate is 3%. The expected liquidation value can be estimated. Limitation of this approach is that it's based on accounting book value. It doesn't reflect the earnings power of the asset. So we can think about this as asset backed valuation. Ignores So it seems like the multiple approach is probably not the best way to go about things. Okay. Some finite life. Cash flow plus 1 R minus G. Oh, so that's so let's say we have divided by cost of equity minus, say, 1%, 0.01. Weighted average shares outstanding, I think actually can be found here. So, basic weighted average shares outstanding. So around 388,000. 388.075. So implied share price is equal to, let's add the present value of cash flows, and then we divide by our shares outstanding. So according to our model, the implied share price is around $5. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. This is good. This is good. It feels good to finally have a number that we can work off of. But yeah, this is just using some random ass inputs. Let's say we have 3% growth, 3% implied share price. Yeah, it would be good to build a kind of as-is model. So let's say we have 5%. I guess this is kind of what people are assuming today. Implied share price, wait. It's around 1621. $13, 4.5. From a fundamentals perspective, can VFC have this much in earnings? 500 in earnings. Spend that low capital expenditures. Oh, we haven't even talked about reinvestments. So $10. Oh, this is affecting the terminal value too, so here's that 7 years. Percent top line growth, 5.5% margin. $21.3. So 3% top line growth. That may not happen in this case. I see. Okay. Yeah, I'd say maybe VFC is fairly valued at this point. It's hard to tell. But I'm just gonna leave this here for now. But I'm excited because I finally got some stuff done. Although this is a very simplified model. Just playing around with some of the assumptions, assuming constant growth and all these different years. This is interesting. So anyway, what's the growth in this case? So 44% increase in net earnings. Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. Las Vegas. Get some push-ups done. Okay. I think I'm going to take a break for right now. Almost at the 2-hour mark. Do my laundry real quick and then get back to this. Alright, see you for now. Bye.